The November rain hammered against the windshield of Ethan's rusted Ford pickup as he navigated the narrow forest road back to his cabin. It was nearly 10 p.m., and his daughter Lily was waiting, probably already asleep on the couch, her math homework half finished on the coffee table. He'd worked a double shift at the lumber mill again, his third this week. The bills didn't care that he was exhausted. The eviction notice didn't care that he was doing his best. The headlights caught something on the side of the road. At first, Ethan thought it was a deer, but as he slowed down, his breath caught in his throat. It was a person, no, a young woman, collapsed against a moss-covered oak tree. Her arms were wrapped around herself, and even from the truck, he could see she was unnaturally pale, almost luminescent in the rain. "Damn it," he muttered, pulling over. Every instinct told him to drive on. This was rural Oregon, deep in the Cascade Mountains. People didn't just appear out here. But he couldn't, not with Lily's face in his mind. What if someone had left his daughter out here? He grabbed the emergency blanket from behind his seat and stepped into the cold rain. Up close, the woman looked even stranger. She was tall, impossibly tall, maybe 6'5", with long silver-white hair plastered to her gaunt face. Her clothes were torn, revealing deep gashes on her forearms that looked almost like restraint marks. Dark bruises circled her wrists like iron shackles had been there. "Hey!" Ethan said softly, kneeling beside her. "Can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered. For a moment, her eyes opened, and Ethan's heart nearly stopped. They were violet. Deep, swirling violet, like storm clouds at dusk. Not contacts. Not human. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. "They're hunting me." Ethan looked around the dark forest. The trees seemed to press in closer, their shadows deeper than they should be. An unnatural silence had fallen despite the storm. No wind rustling leaves, no animals scurrying. Just rain and his own racing heartbeat. "Who's hunting you?" But she'd already passed out again. Ethan made a decision he'd probably regret. He lifted her, and was shocked by how light she felt despite her size, as if her bones were hollow like a bird's. He carried her to the truck, laid her across the back seat, and covered her with the blanket. The 15-minute drive to his cabin felt like hours. He kept glancing in the rear-view mirror, expecting to see headlights following them, but there was only darkness. When he finally pulled up to the small, weathered cabin, relief flooded through him. Inside, Lily was indeed asleep on the couch, her small body curled under her favorite unicorn blanket. She was 8 years old with her mother's dark hair and Ethan's stubborn chin. Sarah had left them 2 years ago, unable to handle the poverty, the isolation, the endless struggle. Ethan had never stopped fighting for their daughter. He carried the strange woman to his bedroom, the only other room besides the main living space and bathroom, and laid her on the bed, under the warm light. Her features were even more striking. She looked about 17 or 18, with high cheekbones and a face that seemed carved from marble. But those marks on her arms... Ethan had been a medic in the Army before everything fell apart. He cleaned the wounds carefully, noting they weren't fresh, days old, maybe a week, but infected. As he worked, he noticed other things. Her skin was cold, almost refrigerated. Her fingernails were slightly pointed, and when he pressed 2 fingers to her wrist to check her pulse, he found nothing. No pulse. He checked again. Her neck. Nothing. But she was breathing. He could see her chest rising and falling, shallow but steady. What the hell was she? "Daddy." Ethan turned to find Lily in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Hey, baby. Sorry, did I wake you?" "Who's that?" Lily pointed at the woman, her eyes wide with curiosity rather than fear. "Someone who needs help. She was hurt in the woods." Ethan moved to block Lily's view, suddenly protective. "Go back to sleep, okay? We'll talk in the morning." "Is she going to be okay?" "I hope so, sweetheart. I hope so." After tucking Lily back in, Ethan returned to keep watch. He sat in the old wooden chair by the bed, his hunting rifle within reach, just in case. The woman slept fitfully, occasionally murmuring in a language he didn't recognize. Once, she cried out, and her eyes snapped open, glowing faintly in the darkness before closing again. The hours crawled by. Around 11:45 p.m., Ethan dozed off despite himself, exhaustion finally winning. He woke to absolute silence. The kind of silence that wasn't natural. Even the old cabin's usual creaks and groans had stopped. The rain had ceased, and something was standing outside his window. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Through the thin curtain, he could see a massive silhouette, a man, but wrong. Too tall, too broad, with a presence that seemed to press against the cabin walls like a physical force. The shadow didn't move, didn't breathe. It just stood there. Then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the front door that echoed like hammer strikes. Ethan grabbed his rifle and moved through the cabin. He checked on Lily first. Still asleep? Thank God. Then approached the door. Who's there? His voice was steadier than he felt. You have something of mine. The voice was deep, resonant, and carried an accent he couldn't place. European, maybe? Old. I've come to retrieve her. I found her hurt in the woods. She needs medical attention. She needs no human physician. The voice held no anger, but absolute certainty. Open the door, Ethan Reeves. The fact that the stranger knew his name made Ethan's finger tighten on the trigger. How do you? I know many things. I know you work at Cascade Lumber Mill. I know you're 3 months behind on rent. I know your daughter Lily has a birthday next month, and you don't know how you'll afford it. I know you saved my daughter's life tonight, when you could have driven past. For that, you have my gratitude. Slowly, Ethan unlocked the door and opened it. The man standing on his porch was massive, 7 feet tall at least, with shoulders that seemed to span the doorway. He wore an immaculate black suit despite the wet forest, and his face was aristocratic, ageless, with the same pale skin and violet eyes as a girl. His dark hair was pulled back, revealing sharp features that could have been carved from stone. But it was his presence that truly intimidated, an aura of barely contained power, of something ancient and dangerous forced into human shape. My name is Vladimir Konstantin Drakovich, the man said, his eyes fixed on Ethan with unsettling intensity. And I've come to make you an offer you would be foolish to refuse. Vladimir Drakovich stepped into the cabin without invitation, and despite his size, he moved with perfect silence. Ethan instinctively stepped back, rifle still raised, though he suspected it would do little good against whatever this man truly was. Lower your weapon, Vladimir said calmly. If I meant you harm, you would already be dead. Instead, I am here to thank you. For what? Finding your daughter in the woods? What was she running from? Vladimir's jaw tightened. The first crack in a composed exterior. Hunters. A group that has pursued my family for generations. They finally tracked us to our home in the mountains, attacked during the day when we were weakest. My daughter Elena escaped, but barely. I've been searching for 3 days. Weakest during the day, Ethan repeated slowly, pieces falling into place. The pale skin, the violet eyes, no pulse, the aristocratic old-world bearing. You're telling me you're a vampire. Vladimir said the word matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. Though not quite what your Hollywood films depict. We are not undead monsters. We are a separate species that evolved alongside humanity. Older, yes. Nocturnal, yes. Requiring blood for sustenance, yes. But we are not demons. Ethan's rational mind screamed that this was impossible, insane. But he'd seen Elena's violet eyes, felt her pulseless wrist, watched her wounds refuse to bleed. And standing before Vladimir, feeling the weight of his presence, Ethan knew deep down that this was real. Your daughter needs blood, Ethan said. That's why she's not healing. Perceptive, Vladimir moved past him toward the bedroom. May I? Ethan followed, keeping the rifle ready. In the bedroom, Vladimir knelt beside the bed with surprising gentleness. He brushed Elena's hair from her face, and for a moment, the ancient creature looked like nothing more than a worried father. Elena, he murmured, I'm here. Her eyes fluttered open, focusing on her father. Papa? Her voice was weak. I'm sorry. I tried to fight them, but there were so many. Sure, you survived. That's what matters. Vladimir looked at Ethan. Do you have any raw meat? Beef, venison, anything? I have some deer meat in the freezer. From last season. Bring it. Not cooked. She needs the blood still in it. While Ethan fetched the meat, his mind raced. This couldn't be happening. Vampires weren't real. But here he was, defrosting venison for a vampire girl, while her 7-foot father waited in his bedroom. He almost laughed at the absurdity. When he returned, Vladimir was speaking softly to Elena in that same foreign language. Romanian, Ethan guessed. He took the meat and held it over Elena's mouth. She bit into it weakly, and Ethan watched in morbid fascination as color slowly returned to her face. Her wounds began to close, the flesh knitting together like time-lapse photography. Better, Vladimir said after she consumed 3 pounds of deer meat. Not enough, but better. She'll need human blood to fully recover. Absolutely not, Ethan said firmly. Not for me, not for my daughter. I wasn't suggesting taking it by force. Vladimir stood, his full height making the ceiling seem too low. We can purchase it. Blood banks, medical suppliers. It's how we've survived in modern times without hunting. But it takes time to arrange, and Elena needs strength now. I was hoping you might consider donating voluntarily. A pint, no more. It would accelerate her healing significantly. Ethan looked at Elena, now sitting up slightly, her violet eyes clearer but still weak. She looked so young, so vulnerable despite her supernatural nature. He thought of Lily, of how he'd want someone to help her if their situations were reversed. Fine, 1 pint. But then you both leave, and we forget this ever happened. Actually, Vladimir said, I was hoping we could discuss a different arrangement. He reached into his suit jacket and withdrew a thick envelope. When he opened it, Ethan saw more cash than he'd seen in years. Stacks of $100 bills neatly organized. $50,000, Vladimir said. As thanks for saving my daughter. Consider it a gift, no strings attached. Ethan stared at the money. $50,000 would pay off his debts, cover rent for a year, give Lily the birthday she deserved in Christmas presents and new clothes, and he forced himself to look away. I didn't help her for money. I know. That's precisely why I'm offering it. Vladimir set the envelope on the dresser. But I have a second proposition, one that would benefit us both far more than a simple payment. I'm listening. Vladimir walked to the window, gazing out at the dark forest. My family has lived in these mountains for 70 years. We came to America after World War II, seeking refuge from the chaos in Europe. We remained hidden, existing peacefully, bothering no one. But the hunters found us. They killed my wife 5 years ago. Now they've destroyed our home and scattered my clan. I have 3 other children, all in hiding across the country. He turned back to Ethan, and there was something almost vulnerable in his ancient eyes. I need a safe place. Somewhere the hunters wouldn't think to look. Somewhere ordinary. This cabin is remote, unremarkable, owned by a single father who keeps to himself. In exchange for shelter, just until I can reunite my family and find a more permanent solution, I would ensure you and your daughter want for nothing. Money, protection, opportunities. I have resources you can't imagine. I've been alive for nearly 400 years, Ethan. I've accumulated wealth, connections, knowledge. I could change your life. Ethan's first instinct was to refuse. Having vampires living in his cabin? It was insane, dangerous. But as Vladimir spoke, a traitorous part of his mind calculated. The money would solve his immediate problems. Protection, actual protection, from whatever Vladimir Drakovich really was, might matter given the hunters apparently existed. And opportunities. My daughter, Ethan said carefully, she'd be safe? You wouldn't. I have children of my own, Vladimir interrupted, his voice hard. I would never harm a child. Ever. That is a line I will not cross, cannot cross. You have my word, and my word is binding in ways you cannot comprehend. Something in the way he said it made Ethan believe him. How long are we talking? A month, perhaps 2. Long enough to coordinate with my other children, arrange new identities, acquire property elsewhere. We would be ghosts in your home. You would barely know we're here. Ethan looked at Elena again. She was watching him with those strange violet eyes, and he saw hope there. Fear, too. She was just a girl, despite being a vampire. Just a kid who'd nearly died. I need to think about it. Of course. But Ethan, the hunters are resourceful. They will track Elena here eventually, if she stays without my protection. You'll be in danger whether you accept my offer or not. At least this way, you'll have the means to defend yourself. It was a good point, damn him. Let me donate that blood. Ethan said, finally. Then we'll talk more in the morning. Or, I guess, tomorrow night. Vladimir inclined his head. That's all I ask. The blood donation was professional, almost medical. Vladimir produced sterile equipment from seemingly nowhere. Ethan didn't ask, and drew exactly 1 pint. Elena drank it slowly, and the transformation was remarkable. Her skin took on a healthy pallor. Her wound sealed completely, and strength returned to her movements. Thank you, she said to Ethan, her voice stronger now. It had a musical quality, accented like her father's. You saved my life. I won't forget that. Just rest, Ethan said, suddenly exhausted. He left them in the bedroom and collapsed on the couch. His mind spun with impossible revelations. Vampires were real. One was sleeping in his bed. Another was probably watching him from the shadows right now. And he was actually considering sheltering them. God, he needed a drink. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of violet eyes and shadows that moved like living things. When Ethan woke, gray morning light filtered through the windows. He checked the bedroom. Empty. The envelope of money was gone, too. For a moment, he wondered if he'd hallucinated the whole thing. Then he saw the note on the dresser, written in elegant script. We will return at nightfall. The money is in your truck's glove compartment. I thought it best to be discreet. Consider my proposal. Whatever you decide, you have my gratitude. V.D. Ethan found the envelope exactly where Vladimir said it would be. $50,000 in cash, real and solid. He sat in his truck for 10 minutes, just staring at it. Daddy. Lily's face appeared in the cabin doorway. Are you coming in for breakfast? He looked at his daughter. Her worn clothes, her too thin frame, the worry lines that shouldn't exist on an 8-year-old's face. He thought about the eviction notice, the empty refrigerator, the birthday he couldn't afford. Then he thought about violet eyes in the darkness and creatures that shouldn't exist. Yeah, baby, he called back. I'm coming. But as he walked back to the cabin, Ethan knew he'd already made his decision. He just had to figure out how to explain it to himself. Ethan spent that day in a daze, going through the motions of normalcy while his world tilted on its axis. He made Lily breakfast. Real bacon for once, thanks to a grocery run funded by carefully extracting a few hundred from the envelope. He drove her to school, watched her skip toward the building with her battered backpack, and felt the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders. Vampires. He was sheltering vampires. The word kept bouncing around his skull as he went to work. At the lumber mill, his supervisor actually complimented him. Apparently, the stress lines on his face had eased enough to make him look less likely to collapse. If only the man knew why. Reeves, you feeling all right? Asked Marcus, a co-worker with 20 years on the job and permanent sawdust in his beard. You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that, Ethan muttered. He left work early, claiming a family emergency, not entirely untrue, and picked up Lily from school. On the drive home, she chatted about her day, about her friend Emma's birthday party that she hadn't been invited to because Emma's mom thought they were too poor to reciprocate. The casual cruelty of it made Ethan's jaw clench. Hey, baby, he said carefully, what if I told you things were going to get better? That we might have some house guests for a while, people who need help. Lily's eyes widened. Like the pretty lady from last night? You remember her? Of course, Daddy. She was beautiful, like a princess from my fairy tale book. Is she okay? She's better. But she and her father need a place to stay for a bit. They're different, special, and I need you to promise me something important. Can you do that? Lily nodded solemnly, sensing his seriousness. Whatever happens, whatever you see, you can't tell anyone. Not your friends, not your teachers, nobody. These people have enemies, bad people hunting them. If anyone found out they were here, it could be very dangerous. Do you understand? Like witness protection? Lily asked. She watched too many crime shows for an 8-year-old. Exactly like that. Can you keep the secret? I promise, Daddy. Cross my heart. Ethan hoped he wasn't making the biggest mistake of his life. They arrived home just as the sun was setting, painting the forest in shades of amber and crimson. The cabin looked the same as always, small, worn, but home. Ethan had no idea where Vladimir and Elena had spent the day. In the crawl space maybe, or hidden somewhere in the dense woods. He found out soon enough. As darkness fell completely, there was a knock at the door, polite, expected. Ethan opened it to find Vladimir standing there, once again immaculate in his dark suit. Behind him, Elena wore new clothes, jeans and a simple sweater that made her look almost normal, except for her impossible height and otherworldly features. "Good evening," Vladimir said. "May we come in?" "You need an invitation?" Ethan asked, remembering the myths. A slight smile touched Vladimir's lips. Only for a permanent residence. But courtesy costs nothing. Ethan stepped aside. As they entered, Lily emerged from a room, and the moment she saw Elena, her face lit up with pure wonder. "You're awake, and you look so much better." She rushed forward, then stopped shyly. "I'm Lily." Elena knelt down to Lily's level, a long way down given her height, and smiled gently. "Hello, Lily. I'm Elena. Your father saved my life. That makes you very special to me." "Really? Can we be friends?" "I would like that very much." Watching them, Ethan felt some of his tension ease. Vladimir caught his eye and nodded slightly, an acknowledgement of the trust being extended. "We should discuss the arrangement," Vladimir said. "May we sit?" They gathered around the small kitchen table, cramped with Vladimir's size, and worked out the details. The vampires would stay in the bedroom during the day, would hunt in the forest at night for animal blood, would pay Ethan $2,000 weekly for the inconvenience. They would help with repairs to the cabin, would ensure no harm came to the family, and would leave the moment their situation was resolved. "One more thing," Vladimir said. "The hunters, you should know what you're facing." He produced a photograph from his jacket, an old Polaroid, yellow with age. It showed a group of men in tactical gear, heavily armed, standing over the bodies of creatures Ethan recognized from old legends. Werewolves, or something close to them. "The Order of Van Helsing," Vladimir explained. "Yes, that Van Helsing. They've hunted supernatural beings for centuries. Started with good intentions, protecting humanity from genuine monsters. But over the generations, they've become extremists. They don't distinguish between threats and peaceful existence. To them, anything non-human must die." "How many are after you?" "A hunting party of 6, led by a man named Dietrich Kruger, German, ex-military, fanatical. He killed my wife. Now he wants to finish the bloodline." Ethan's hands clenched on the table. Whatever else these creatures were, they were people. They had families. They loved and feared and hurt like anyone else. "If they come here." "They won't, if we're careful. During the day, Elena and I will be hidden. At night, I'll maintain wards around property, mystical protections that will obscure our presence. To any hunter's tracking methods, this place will read as nothing but a human residence. But if they somehow break through..." Vladimir's eyes hardened. "I will defend this home with every ounce of my being. That is my vow." They shook on it. Vladimir's hand was cool but firm, his grip containing carefully controlled strength. Over the next week, a strange new rhythm developed. During the day, Ethan worked while Lily went to school, the cabin quiet and seemingly empty. But in the bedroom's closet, a hidden trapdoor led to a small space Vladimir had somehow excavated and reinforced in a single night, their daylight sanctuary. At night, the vampires emerged. Elena helped Lily with homework, patiently explaining mathematics with perspective that came from centuries of learning. Vladimir proved to be an excellent carpenter, repairing the cabin's sagging porch, fixing the leaky roof, strengthening the foundation. He worked with impossible speed and precision, his supernatural strength making easy work a task that would have taken Ethan weeks. You don't have to do this, Ethan said one night, watching Vladimir rebuild the entire port support structure. Yes, I do. I pay my debts. Always. Vladimir fitted a beam into place without apparent effort. Besides, your daughter deserves better than this struggling existence, as does my Elena. Perhaps both can have it for a time. Lily and Elena's friendship deepened rapidly. The vampire girl played games with her, told her stories from across centuries, taught her words in Romanian and Russian, and languages that had died long ago. For Lily, it was magical. For Elena, who'd been isolated from human children for decades, it was a chance to experience something close to normalcy. She's wonderful, Elena told Ethan one evening. So bright, so curious. She reminds me of my younger self before everything. How old are you really? Ethan asked. I was turned at 17 93 years ago. I've been this age longer than your country has existed, in its current form. But inside, sometimes I still feel like a child who doesn't understand why the world is so cruel. The vulnerability in her admission struck Ethan. She was both ancient and young, powerful and fragile. But the peace couldn't last. On the 10th night, Vladimir returned from a hunt in the forest with blood on his hands. Not his own. He'd found signs of the hunters. Tire tracks on an old logging road, a camp recently abandoned, electronic equipment designed to detect supernatural energy signatures. They're close, he said grimly. Perhaps within 10 miles. They're sweeping the area systematically. What do we do? Ethan asked, fear spiking through him. We prepare. Ethan, I need you to understand something. If Kruger finds us, there will be violence. I will do everything in my power to protect you and Lily, but these men are trained killers. You may need to fight. I was a medic, not infantry. But you know how to shoot. Vladimir gestured to the hunting rifle. And you have something more important, something to protect. That makes any man dangerous. Over the next 2 nights, Vladimir turned the cabin into a fortress. He inscribed symbols on the walls, old words and languages that predated Latin. He showed Ethan where he'd buried weapons. Silver blades for werewolves, if any allied with the hunters. Wooden stakes as a backup. Even modern firearms loaded with specialty ammunition. Silver won't kill me, Vladimir explained, but it burns and weakens. Wooden stakes through the heart will paralyze us. Sunlight exposure for more than a few minutes will cause severe burns and eventual death. Fire is deadly. Decapitation is final. Know this, in case the worst happens. You're telling me how to kill you? I'm telling you how to survive. If I fall, take Elena and Lily and run. There's a safe house in Portland. Here's the address. Memorize it. Ethan did, his mouth dry. On the 13th night, the hunters came. Ethan woke to Vladimir's hand over his mouth and his urgent whisper. They're here. Stay quiet. Protect Lily. Through the window, Ethan saw them. 6 figures moving to the forest with military precision, night vision goggles gleaming, weapons ready. They were 100 yards out, sweeping toward the cabin with the inexorable advance of a pack closing in on prey. Vladimir stood in the center of the living room, hands loose at his sides, utterly calm. Elena moved to stand beside him, her earlier gentleness replaced by predatory stillness. Papa, she said softly, Kruger's with them. I can smell his blood. He still carries the weapon that killed Mama. I know, daughter. Tonight, we end this. One way or another. The first hunter reached the porch. His hand touched the door. And then Vladimir moved. Vladimir moved like liquid shadow, crossing the room in a blur of impossible speed. He hit the door just as a hunter touched it, the impact sending the man flying backward off the porch. The hunter's scream cut off abruptly as he crashed into a tree 15 feet away, the crack of breaking bone echoing through the night. Contact, someone shouted. Target acquired. Gunfire erupted. Ethan grabbed Lily from her room, pulling her into the closet as bullets punched through the cabin walls. She clung to him, trembling but silent, brave beyond her years. Through the closet slats, Ethan watched in horrified awe as Vladimir and Elena became what they truly were, apex predators. Elena dove through the window in an explosion of glass, landing among the hunters with feline grace. She moved between them like a dancer, disarming one with a casual swat that shattered his arm, kicking another with enough force to send him tumbling down the slope. Vladimir was more direct. He simply walked into the gunfire, bullets hitting him with wet impacts but not slowing him. When he reached the second hunter, he grabbed the man's rifle and crushed it like tinfoil, then caught the hunter by the throat and hurled him into the forest. The man's body disappeared into the darkness with a crashing of branches. "Silver rounds," someone commanded. "Use the silver." The gunfire changed pitch. When these bullets hit Vladimir, he actually stumbled, his suit smoking where the silver rounds had penetrated. He snarled, the first truly inhuman sound Ethan had heard from him, and his eyes blazed like violet suns. "You dare come to this house?" Vladimir's voice had changed, deepened, carrying a resonance that seemed to vibrate in Ethan's chest. "You dare threaten those under my protection?" A man stepped out of the forest shadows, older than the others, with steel-gray hair and a face carved from granite. He carried a crossbow mounted with what looked like a silver-tipped bolt, aimed directly at Vladimir's heart. "Dietrich Kruger," Vladimir said, the name dripping with venom. "I've dreamed of this moment." "As have I, bloodsucker." Kruger's accent was thick German, his expression twisted with hatred. "You took my son in Prague, turned him into a monster. I had to put him down myself. Your son came at me with fire and holy water. I defended myself. If you taught him that not all vampires are killers, all of you are abominations." Kruger fired. The bolt flew true, but Elena was faster. She intercepted it mid-flight, catching the silver shaft with her bare hand despite the smoke rising from her burning flesh. She screamed in pain but held on, snapping the bolt in half. "Daddy's turn," she said through gritted teeth. Vladimir moved. Even wounded by silver, even outnumbered, he was terrifying. He closed the distance to Kruger in a heartbeat, but the old hunter was experienced. He rolled aside, drawing a silver knife and slashing in the same motion. The blade opened a line across Vladimir's chest, and the vampire actually roared in pain. The fight devolved into chaos. The remaining hunters rallied around Kruger, forming a defensive perimeter with overlapping silver weapons. Vladimir and Elena circled them like wolves, looking for openings, but the hunters were professionals. They'd hunted creatures like this for years. From the closet, Ethan made a decision. He couldn't let the vampires fight alone, not when they were defending his home, his daughter. He grabbed his hunting rifle, chambered a round, and stepped out. "Ethan, no!" Vladimir shouted, but it was too late. One of the hunters spotted him, spun, raised his weapon. Ethan fired first. The hunting round caught the man in the shoulder, spinning him around. It was the first time Ethan had shot another human being, and the sight of blood blooming on the man's tactical vest made him want to vomit. But he'd made his choice. He was in this now. Kruger's eyes found him, and understanding dawned. The human is helping them. Collaborator. That makes you just as guilty. These are good people. Ethan shouted back. They're not hurting anyone. They're not people. They're parasites wearing human faces. Kruger gestured sharply. "Take him." Two hunters moved toward the cabin. Ethan fired again, but his hands were shaking and the shot went wide. One of the hunters returned fire. The round punched the cabin wall inches from Ethan's head, showering him with splinters. Then Vladimir was there, a wall of fury between Ethan and the hunters. He took 3 silver rounds to protect the human, his body jerking with each impact, smoke rising from the wounds. But he didn't fall. Instead, he grabbed the nearest hunter, lifted him overhead, and threw him at his companion. Both men went down in a tangle of limbs. "Get back inside," Vladimir commanded, his voice brooking no argument. Ethan retreated, but kept his rifle ready. Through the doorway, he watched the battle rage. Elena had engaged 2 hunters simultaneously, her speed and strength overwhelming even as silver weapons burned her. She was beautiful and terrible, her silver hair wild, her eyes blazing, her movements part combat, part deadly dance. But they were weakening. Silver was poison to them, and they'd taken too many hits. Vladimir was slowing, his supernatural speed diminishing. Elena had a silver knife embedded in her shoulder, the wound smoking and refusing to heal. Kruger saw it too. He smiled grimly, loading another silver bolt. It ends tonight, Drakovich. Your bloodline dies with you. He aimed at Vladimir's heart. No! The shout came from an unexpected source. Lily had escaped the closet, had seen everything, and now stood in the doorway with Ethan's pistol, a .45 he'd taught her to shoot for emergencies, gripped in both small hands. Lily, get back! Ethan lunged for her, but she'd already pulled the trigger. The report was deafening. The bullet, not silver, just lead, caught Kruger in the leg. The old hunter went down with a curse, his crossbow bolt flying wild, missing Vladimir entirely and embedding itself in a tree. The distraction was all the vampires needed. Elena surged forward, disarming the remaining hunters with brutal efficiency. Vladimir descended on Kruger before the old man could rise, pinning him to the ground with one hand around his throat. Papa, don't kill him. Elena called, You're better than that. Vladimir's hand tightened. Kruger's face was turning purple. In the vampire's eyes were centuries of pain, his dead wife, his hunted children, endless years of fleeing and hiding and watching his kind driven to extinction. One squeeze and it would be over. But he looked up at Elena, at Lily, standing there with the gun, tears streaming down her face, at Ethan, who'd risked everything to help them. He released Kruger and stood. The old hunter gasped for air, clutching his bleeding leg. It's over, Vladimir said quietly. Take your men and go. If you ever come near my family again, I won't be so merciful. This isn't mercy, Kruger spat. It's weakness. No, it's evolution. We don't have to be monsters. Either of us. Vladimir turned away, done with the conversation. Leave. Now. The hunters gathered their wounded. 3 with broken bones, 2 unconscious, Kruger limping, and retreated into the forest. They'd be back eventually, Ethan knew. Fanatics like that always came back. But not tonight. As their footsteps faded, the reality of what had just happened crashed over Ethan. He'd shot a man. His 8-year-old daughter had shot a man to save a vampire. Their quiet life was shattered beyond repair. He sank down on the porch steps, suddenly exhausted. Vladimir sat beside him, a 7-foot-tall, bullet-riddled vampire sitting beside a traumatized single father at 2 a.m. I'm sorry, Vladimir said simply. This is my fault. I brought danger to your doorstep. No, Ethan replied. I invited it in. I made the choice. They sat in silence for a moment. Inside, Elena was comforting Lily, checking her for injuries, praising her bravery, while gently explaining that shooting someone was always a last resort. Through the window, Ethan could see his daughter nodding, looking older than she had any right to be. What happens now? He asked. Now we leave, as planned. My other children are ready. I've been coordinating while staying here. We have a new home in Northern California, far from Kruger's hunting grounds. We'll relocate tonight, be gone before sunrise. And us? Vladimir reached into his jacket, somehow still intact despite the bullet holes, and withdrew a thick envelope. This one was even larger than the first. $200,000. Enough to start over wherever you choose. New identity documents are being prepared for you and Lily. I have contacts who can make you disappear completely. There's also a phone number. If you ever need anything, call it. Day or night, I will answer. That is my promise. Ethan stared at the envelope. It was a fortune, a new life, escape from poverty, from struggle, from constantly being one disaster away from homelessness. But it also meant running, leaving the only home Lily had ever known, living with the fear that Kruger or someone like him might find them, carrying the weight of this night forever. I don't know what to do, he admitted. There's no wrong answer, Vladimir said. But I will tell you this. You are a good man, Ethan Reeves. You saved my daughter when you owed her nothing. You defended my family at risk to your own. That kind of courage, that kind of decency, it's rarer than you know. Whatever you decide, you deserve better than this struggle. Elena emerged from the cabin with Lily. Both of them looked exhausted, but unharmed. Lily ran to her father, and Ethan held her tight, breathing in her familiar scent, a mixture of cheap shampoo and the woods and childhood. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered. "I know you said not to shoot people, but he was going to hurt Mr. Vladimir." "Sure, you did what you had to. I'm proud of you. So proud." He was crying. Ethan realized. "It's going to be okay." Elena knelt beside them. She'd removed the silver knife from her shoulder, and the wound was already slowly healing. "Lily, you saved my father's life tonight. That makes you the bravest person I know. And it makes us sisters in the way that matters most." She pressed something into Lily's hand, a small pendant on a silver chain. Lily opened her palm to reveal a beautiful violet gemstone, the same color as Elena's eyes. "This has been in my family for 300 years, Elena explained. "It's called a Nightstone. It will protect you from dark magic, from evil spirits, from things that go bump in the night. As long as you wear it, a part of me is with you. Always." Lily threw her arms around Elena, and the vampire girl hugged her back with careful gentleness, mindful of her supernatural strength. Watching them, Ethan felt something shift inside him. His world had expanded tonight, had broken open to reveal wonders and terrors he'd never imagined. And somehow, impossibly, he was grateful. Vladimir and Elena gathered their few belongings, a process that took maybe 5 minutes. As they prepared to leave, Vladimir turned to Ethan one last time. "Where will you go?" he asked. Ethan looked at the cabin, at the forest, at the mountains he'd called home for 30 years. Then he looked at his daughter, wearing a vampire's pendant, her innocence forever altered but her spirit unbroken. "I think we'll stay," he said finally. "This is our home. Kruger might come back, but we'll deal with that if it happens. Running seems like letting them win." Vladimir smiled, a genuine, warm expression that transformed his severe features. "Spoken like true friend. Then I'll make sure you're protected. I'll set permanent wards around the property, teach you some defensive techniques, arrange for weapons that can stop anything supernatural. You'll be as safe as I can make you." "Why? You don't owe us anything more." "Because you're family now," Vladimir said simply. "And I protect my family." They left as the first hint of dawn touched the eastern sky, 2 shadows disappearing into forest with inhuman speed. Ethan watched them go, the envelope of money heavy in his hands, the weight of everything that had happened settling on his shoulders. Beside him, Lily yawned. "Daddy, can Elena come visit sometimes?" "I think that can be arranged, baby." "Good. I like having a vampire sister." Ethan laughed, a genuine, cathartic laugh that felt like releasing months of tension. He picked up his daughter, carried her inside, and tucked her into bed as the sun rose over the mountains. She was asleep in seconds, the Nightstone pendant glowing faintly on her chest. Ethan made coffee, sat on the newly repaired porch, and watched the dawn paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere out there, vampires were finding shelter from the light. Somewhere, hunters were regrouping, planning their next move. Somewhere, the world continued on, oblivious of the secret wars fought in the shadows. But here, in this moment, Ethan Reeves was just a father having coffee on his porch, watching the sunrise, grateful to be alive. A month later, Lily had her birthday party, the biggest, most extravagant celebration the small Oregon town had ever seen. There were bouncy castles, a petting zoo, a magician, more cake than 30 kids could possibly eat. Every child from her school was invited, and every single one came. When asked how he'd afforded it, Ethan just smiled and said he'd gotten lucky with an investment. That night, after the guests had left and Lily was asleep surrounded by presents, there was a knock at the door. Ethan opened it to find a delivery, a massive wooden crate addressed to the Reeves family with gratitude. Inside was a hand-carved rocking horse, so beautifully crafted it belonged in a museum. Lily's name was engraved on the saddle in flowing script. Attached was a note in familiar, elegant handwriting. For Lily, the bravest sister anyone could ask for. May your nights be peaceful, and your days be filled with wonder. Until we meet again. E.D. P.S. from V.D. The wards are holding. You're safe. Sleep well, friend. Ethan set the note on the mantel, next to a framed photo of that strange, terrifying, wonderful night. the last picture taken before everything changed. In it, Lily grinned at the camera while Elena stood behind her, one pale hand resting gently on the child's shoulder. Vladimir was visible in the background, his severe face softened into something almost approaching happiness. Looking at it, Ethan realized he wouldn't change a thing. They'd faced darkness and found family. They'd gambled everything and won something priceless. Sometimes, he thought, salvation comes from the most unexpected places, even at midnight, even from the monsters